Hello friends, welcome to aimstoday YouTube channel, NEET Foundation, Biology. In this video, we are going to discuss about famous biologists like Aristotle, Galen, Anton van Leeuwenhoek, Robert Hooke, Carolus Linnaeus, Charles Darwin, etc. Scientists are very important. They contributed their knowledge to our understanding of biology concepts. Without them, it is not possible to understand the typical concepts in biology. The famous biologists, number one, Aristotle. Aristotle is famous for the classification of living things. He belongs to 384-332 BC. Aristotle's zoology and the classification of species was his greatest contribution to the history of biology. Aristotle was the first to classify all living things, and some of his groups are still used today, like the vertebrates and invertebrates, which he called animals with blood and without blood. Aristotle was called the father of biology. He revealed his thoughts about various aspects of the life of plants and animals. He also contributed his knowledge in the embryology also. He is also called the father of zoology. Next, famous biologist, Galen, the famous for introducing medical experimentation. He belongs to 129-161 AD. The life work of Greek physician Galen revolutionized the way in which medical research was and is conducted. Galen had a major influence on the development of many fields of medicine, including anatomy, pathology, physiology, and neurology. This great personality, Claudius Galen, is a Roman physician and philosopher of Greek origin. Galen earned a reputation as a practitioner and a public demonstrator of anatomy and preferred extensive dissections and in the animals. The Galen described many formulae containing plants and animal drugs, which he compiled this knowledge in 20 books called Galen works. His theories dominated and influenced the medical science for well over a million. The notable discoveries include the identification of the differences between veins and arteries and recognizing that the larynx generates voice. Larynx is called voice box. So it was proved by this Galen. Next, the famous biologist Anton van Leeuwenhoek, known as father of microbiology, the 16th and 17th century, 1632 to 1723. Leeuwenhoek is well known for his contributions to microscopy and how he applied this to the field of biology. He revolutionized a technique for creating powerful lenses, which some speculate were able to magnify up to 500 times. Leeuwenhoek used the microscopes to find out more about the living world. His discoveries include bacteria, the vacuole of the cell, and banded pattern of muscle fibers. Okay, by his own microscopes, he studied different biological fluids and discovered the bacteria. He also introduced the unicellular organisms, protozoa. He is the famous person. That's why he is popularly called the father of microbiology. Next, famous biologist Robert Hooke, famous for discovering the cell, 1635 to 1703. The period. Hooke was primarily a physics and chemistry specialist, but his discovery of cell has been monumentally impactful on the world of biology. Hooke had an extraordinary ability to manipulate microscopes, and when applying this ability to looking closely at a thin slice of cork, observed empty spaces contained with walls, and the term cell was introduced by Robert Hooke. We know that cells are the building blocks of life. Robert Hooke is an English natural philosopher, the first person to see a cell under a microscope. He is the first person to describe the unit life to be called a cell. He invented the compound microscope. He became a scientist in the year 1655 when he was only 20 years old. When Robert Hooke was 27 years old, he was appointed curator of experiments. Next, famous biologist Carl Linnaeus, known as father of modern taxonomy. Between the period 1707 to 1775, a botanist, physician, and zoologist. All at the same time, Linnaeus came up with the system of naming, ranking, and classifying organisms that we still use today. It was his vast collection of specimens of plants and animals and shells that led to Linnaeus coming up with a way of grouping and naming species. He separated all living things into three kingdoms: animals, plants, and minerals, subdividing them into classes, then into orders, and then finally into genera and species. Carolus Linnaeus is a father of taxonomy, widely known for two contributions. The first one is classification and binomial nomenclature of organisms. He said that every organism can be named with two names, that is, generic name and specific name. He classified nature into kingdoms, classes, orders, genera, and species, which exist till today with some changes, little changes. He named 4,400 animal species and 7,700 plant species through his binomial nomenclature, a two-part scientific name in Latin for every species. He was appointed the chief royal physician in 1747 and knighted by King of Sweden in 1778. His famous book Systema Naturae explains about these species of plants and animals. Next important and the famous scientist Charles Darwin. He is famous for the theory of evolution. Probably the most famous naturalist of all time, Darwin's contribution to biology and society is beyond imagination. He established that all species of life have descended over time from common ancestors, the existence of new species occurring via the process of natural selection. According to Charles Darwin, the biological evolution changed in the species over time. This was not a new idea at the time, but there were no good mechanisms to explain how these changes occurred. The natural selection is just such a mechanism, and this is what the Darwin contributed. According to him, nature itself selects the better one, the survival of the fittest, the concept. His theory of evolution was published in On the Origin of Species in 1859, and it caused quite the stir. Darwin was disputing the long-held belief that all species had been created by God at the beginning of the world. Hello friends, welcome to aimstoday YouTube channel. NEET Foundation, Biology, about famous biologists. In this video, we are going to discuss about some of the famous biologists who contributed their knowledge to our understanding of biology. Gerald Mendel, the founder of modern genetics. Mendel used pea plant to discover and demonstrate the laws of genetic inheritance, coining the terms dominant and recessive genes in this process. The laws were discovered at the turn of the 20th century and provided the mechanism by which Darwin's theory of natural selection can occur. The two famous laws introduced by Gerald John Mendel, law of segregation and law of independent assortment. Genetics is the field of biology that studies how characteristics or traits are passed from parent to children. Gerald Mendel, often considered as the father of genetics, was the Austrian monk, gardened and grew peas in the mid-1800s. He looked at 7 different traits in the pea plants, that is, height, pod appearance, seed texture, position of flowers, flower color, pod color, seed color, etc. The two theories combine to form out current understanding of the evolutionary process. Next, the famous biologist Alfred Russel Wallace, the famous for Wallace line. The research of British naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace played a pivotal role in developing the theory of natural selection. Wallace collected more than 1 lakh insect, bird and animal specimens which he gave to British museums. He is a Russel Wallace, biologist, naturalist and explorer. He studied geographical distribution of animal species in his biography, and influenced by Malthus, the famous personality who wrote an essay on growth of population, they realized that the species differs from similar ones due to environmental pressures. And Wallace developed his own theory of evolution, very similar to Darwin's. Next, Watson and Crick, famous for discovering the structure of DNA in 1962. Francis Crick and James Watson shot to fame in 1962 for their discovery of the structure of DNA, winning the medical Nobel Prize in the process. Their model of DNA double helix explains how DNA replicates and how hereditary information is coded and passed on. Watson and Crick discovered the double helix by building models to conform to X-ray data. Watson saw an X-ray photo of DNA produced by Rosalind Franklin. Watson and Crick deducted from Franklin data, that one. And she also got the Nobel Prize along with this because she died of cancer due to more exposure to the X-rays. The discovery of the structure has led to a much more developed understanding of function used in disease diagnosis and treatment, and even in forensic science also it is useful, detecting the criminals. Later, famous another scientist, Wilmot and Campbell, the famous for being the first scientist to clone a mammal in 1996. Keith Campbell and Ian Wilmot cloned a mammal famously named Dolly, the sheep. The pair cloned Dolly using a single adult sheep cell and a process of nuclear transfer. Dolly died after only 6 years, but cloning continues, although still not perfected and certainly not ready for human application yet. So, Ian Wilmot and Keith Campbell, these two are famous for cloning process. Next famous scientist, Jagdish Chandra Bose. Sir Jagdish Chandra Bose is one of the most prominent first Indian scientists who proved by experimentation that both animals and plants share much in common. He demonstrated that plants are also sensitive to heat, cold, light, noise, and various other external stimuli. The modern scientist Jagdish Chandra Bose was the first scientist to discover that plants too are living beings and have similar life cycles and functions like animals. He pioneered investigation of radio and microwave optics. IIIE named him one of the fathers of radio science. He is a biophysicist, invented crystallograph, an instrument for measuring the growth of plants. A crater on the moon has been named in his honor. Bose contrived a very sophisticated instrument called crystallograph, which could record and observe the minute responses because of external stimulants. It was capable of magnifying the motion of plant tissue to about 10,000 times of their actual size, which found many similarities between plants and other living organisms. So he is the person who proved that plants also has life. Next, famous our Indian scientist Monkombu Sambasivan Swaminathan. M.S. Swaminathan is an Indian geneticist and international administrator renowned for his leading role in India's Green Revolution, where high-yield varieties of wheat and rice seedlings were planted in the field of poor farmers. He is known as Indian Father of Green Revolution for his sincere leadership and success in developing high-yielding varieties of wheat in India. M.S. Swaminathan, Monkombu Sambasivan Swaminathan, is an Indian geneticist and international administrator, born in Tamil Nadu, father of Indian Green Revolution, for his leadership and successful in introducing and further developing the high varieties of wheat, moving India to sustainable development, especially using environmental sustainable agriculture, sustainable food security, and the preservation of biodiversity, which he calls an evergreen revolution. He worked as a Director General of ICAR, IRRI and IUCN, the founder of M.S. Swaminathan Research Foundation in Chennai, and as a chairman of the National Commission on Agriculture, National Commission on Farmers, etc. The great personality. Hello friends, welcome to aimstoday YouTube channel. You are watching NEET Foundation Biology. In this video, we are going to discuss about famous biologists who contributed their knowledge to our understanding of biology. Birbal Sahani. Birbal Sahani is the third son of Ishwari Devi and Lala Ruchi Ram Sahani. Was born in Behra, Shahpur district, West Punjab. He was an Indian paleobotanist who studied the fossils of Indian subcontinent. And also a geologist, took interest in archaeology. He was an Indian paleobotanist who studied the fossils of the Indian subcontinent. He also took an interest in geology and archaeology. He founded what is now the Birbal Sahani Institute of Paleobotany at Lucknow in 1946. He established. His major contributions were in the study of the fossil plants of India and in plant evolution. He was also involved in the establishment of Indian science education. Birbal served as the president of the National Academy of Sciences, India, and as an honorary president of the International Botanical Congress. He was appointed the first professor and the head of the botany department of the Lucknow University in 1921, a position he retained until his death. The University of Cambridge recognized his researches by the award of degree of SCD in 1929. He was the founder of the Paleobotanical Society, which established the Institute of Paleobotany on 10th September 1946. Sahani was interested in the music and could play in the sitar and the violin. He was also interested in clay modeling and in playing chess and tennis. The Birbal Sahani Gold Medal for the students of botany was instituted in his memory. Next, famous biologist Louis Pasteur. Louis Pasteur was a French biologist, microbiologist, and chemist renowned for his discoveries of the principles of vaccination, microbial fermentation, and pasteurization technique. He is remembered for his remarkable breakthroughs in the case and prevention, in the causes and prevention of diseases, and his discoveries have saved many lives, many industries ever since. He was a French biologist and he created the first vaccine for rabies and anthrax, and he is the best known to the general public for his invention of the technique of treating milk and wine to stop bacterial contamination, a process now called pasteurization. He is regarded as one of the three main founders of bacteriology, together with Koch, Ferdinand Kohn, and Robert Koch, and is popularly known as the father of microbiology. Under the auspices of the French Academy of Sciences, he demonstrated that in sterilized and sealed flasks nothing ever developed, and in sterilized but open flasks microorganisms could grow. The Pasteur made significant discoveries in chemistry, most notably on the molecular basis for the asymmetry of certain crystals and racemization. He was the director of the Pasteur Institute, established in 1887 until his death, and his body was interred in a vault beneath the institute. So he developed vaccines for anthrax and rabies, and he created the process of pasteurization, which we are following now. Famous another biologist Edward Jenner, and he created the first effective vaccine for smallpox. Edward Jenner is considered as the father of immunology, mainly because of his pioneering work on the smallpox vaccine and the use of vaccination. The vaccination was first started by this Edward Jenner, Edward Jenner is considered as father of immunology. Next, Joseph Presley. He is famous for discovery of oxygen. Joseph Presley's contribution to the world of science includes his identification of oxygen in its gaseous state. His other works include the invention of soda water and discovery of other gases. Of course, his most famous discovery of dephotosophisticated air. Oxygen remains his most famous discovery. Next, Robert Brown. Robert Brown is famous for the discovery of nucleus, cell nucleus. Specializing in botany, Scottish-born Robert Brown introduced the model that help describe random movements of cells, which is known as particle theory, or more aptly called Brownian motion. Among his contributions to the world of science was his description in detail of the cell nucleus in all living things. Next, the famous biologist Andrew Vesalius. Andrew Vesalius is famous on the fabric of the human body. He is born in Brussels, Habsburg, Netherlands in 1514. Andrew Vesalius is the noted author of one of the earliest books of anatomy, On the Fabric of the Human Body. It is a famous book in anatomy. He is considered as the founder of modern human anatomy. Andreas Vesalius is considered as founder of modern human. Hello friends, welcome to aimstoday YouTube channel. You are watching NEET Foundation Biology, the biologists and their contribution to our understanding of biology. In this video, we are going to discuss about some more biologists. Hippocrates. He is famous, called as the father of Western medicine. And he is the first person to attribute the disease to natural causes rather than caused by the superstition that it is caused by gods. He is called father of medicine. Theodor Swan. Theodor Swan was an anatomist and physiologist who is best known for developing the cell doctrine or cell theory that all living things are composed of cells. He established that the cell is the basic unit of all living things. Swan discovered the enzyme pepsin and discovered glial cells in nerves, and these are now known as Swan cells. Swan is a zoologist. He studied different animal cells under microscopes and stated that all animals are formed from or made up of structure and function units called cells. Next, Rudolph Virchow. Rudolph Virchow was the eminent pathologist and politician, widely regarded as one of the greatest and most influential physicians in history. A founding father of both pathology and social medicine, Virchow analyzed the effects of disease in various organs and tissues of the human body. He studied the cell division and he proposed that the new cells are formed from pre-existing cells, which is one of the points included in the modern cell theory. Salmanwaksman. Salmanwaksman and his research teams discovered antibiotics made by soil-dwelling bacteria. The word antibiotic was coined by Waksman. One of the antibiotics made by these bacteria was streptomycin. Streptomycin is the first effective treatment for tuberculosis. Waksman, a pioneer in the field of soil microbiology, was the sole recipient of the 1952 Nobel Prize in Physiology or medicine.